David Stevens, third generation citrus grower from the Mildura district. Family's been here since the early 1900s. We're currently in development mode of expanding our citrus operation. Citrus has come back into good heart in the last few years. We are very proud to be citrus growers, and we're looking forward to supporting the community through all our efforts over the next few years. So one of the proposed solar farms on McKay's Road is right on my boundary of property that we're currently developing. Part of my job or my career is to do economic analysis on blocks when we plant them for obviously the turnover and for the shareholders to agree or not agree on going ahead. I've done a financial analysis of the farm that we're planting here, which is 25 acres, which just so happens to be the same size as the solar farm next door to our property. The economic analysis shows that in full production we will put back into the community $540,000 per annum in packing charges, which includes boxes, freight, packing, which supports over 250 jobs throughout Sunraysia. The return to the farm will be $600,000, which will be paid out to pickers, farm costs, mortgages and all these sorts of things that supports another hundreds of jobs actually through all the fertiliser delivery, the labour delivery for the picking, the logistics, the delivery of getting bins to and from the farm, and all these sorts of things. So the economic analysis shows that it's a turnover of about 1.1 million with around about 800,000 per annum going back into the community each and every year. So that far outweighs anything that the solar people are proposing. They're proposing larger turnovers for sure, but only supporting 3 jobs. I think the council need to take a long hard look at what this proposal means to the people around them. A lot of homes are boundering on these properties, and there's the emotional effects of it all. I mean, we're already suffering the emotional effects of it, and no one's excavated a bit of dirt yet. I mean, this just shouldn't have gone this far. I'd suggest to the council there's no way that they would let a dwelling be built anywhere near the boundary of a solar farm of this magnitude. Why should they allow the development of a solar farm next to residential properties? I mean, it's just unfathomable really, and like I say, I can't believe it's got this far, and I hope that common sense prevails and that they can it, and we can just return to our lives as they were before, and we'll plant some beautiful citrus or vines on this property, which is exactly what it's there for and exactly why the infrastructure of Lower Murray Water is there for.
I'm Anthony Bashira, this is my wife Carmel. We're local dry fruit growers in the Birdwoodton area. We've got a farm on McKay's Road, which has been in the family for over 50 years.
Our property is adjacent to right beside the proposed site, and there is the talk of the heat island effect. So we worry about the increase in temperature and
the effect on bud burst and fruit set, what it's going to do. So we're unsure what's going to happen.
If there's an early bud burst, what happens there? The frosts and
the frost will come in and just wipe us out.
That increase in temperature, you get 40, 46, 47 degree days, but there's going to be an increase because we're in that proximity. Is that going to burn our fruit?
Scorch the fruit as it is, and like the sun does it now, the exposed bunches. So there's more heat coming through. Could just burn the lot.
We put a lot of hard work into it, and we pride ourselves on what we produce. We also worry about, in 25 years' time, when this is supposedly all done and dusted, what happens to that site? Is it going to be any good for agricultural use? Are they going to remove the solar panels? Is it going to be left there? What sort of an eyesore, is going to be there? Well, what's our property worth? I mean, the future, like looking into the future, we'll want to retire one day, obviously. I mean, who's going to want to buy any property beside a solar plant?
I'm Terry Onyardi, my wife Judy. My family have been here since 1957, the year I was born, so I don't know any different. I've lived in this property all my life. My biggest issue about what's happening next door is because of the old Mildura planning scheme, we're really limited what we can do. Council have always made it clear they want to keep the irrigation district viable and alive. They want to put a solar facility next door. It just doesn't ring true to me, and I just can't see how planning will let it happen, and I'm hoping council don't approve it. We actually got introduced by Gavin Sedgman to Daniel Flynn, one of the directors, the founding director of Powervolt. They turned up here one day, Judy happened to be home, and they gave us a spiel, and we thought, oh yeah, it's not too bad. It's going to be about half that site, only going to go up to the shed. We'll put a bit of a buffer zone around it. And we thought, that's fine.
Sounded lovely, didn't it?
Sounded lovely. And then I think it was the following Saturday, was it?
Yes.
It was Saturday week. Donna Strong called in and said, oh, do you realise what's happening next door? I said, oh yeah, they called in. Yeah, doesn't sound too bad. And she said, well, here's the planning. I've picked it up, and it was just totally different. Absolutely totally different. So they started off not telling the truth properly, and they've continued. If you read what's in the paper, it's totally different to what we know is in the planning. What I'm probably the biggest hassle of, or worry I have about the solar farm or facility, there's no such thing as a solar farm, is the heat island effect it'll cause. We've got horticulture around. The global warming protagonists say 1 degree would be catastrophic for the world. Research in America says there's 3 to 4 degree average temperature rise around a solar facility. So what the hell is that going to do to, if I've got a hot northerly, a 40, 45 degree day, if the average temperature is 3 to 4, what's it in the middle of summer? 6, 7, 8 degrees more? If that blows straight across into my vineyard, it'll just zap it. I'll lose my crop.
Mick Kelly. I live down on Mackay's Road in Birdwoodton. I'm sort of stuck between two of the solar industrial installations, because that's what they are. They're not a solar farm. Farms are where people are out there actually doing stuff and working on the land, creating a living. This is just corporate greed. One part of my objection is around the Aboriginal cultural heritage. There was no consideration put in there towards that. Even people today say that the Aboriginal cultural heritage is destroyed on top of the surface through the farming practices in the past, which was clearing and installation of vines and irrigation systems. That's not to say that what's under the ground is not impacted. You've got to remember 40-odd thousand years of occupation here. There are still human remains under this ground that will potentially be disturbed by deep trenching and things like that. And I think the consideration has to be put in place around Aboriginal cultural heritage. How are they going to put the considerations in? Are they just going to tokenistic pay someone to go and say nothing's there and don't have monitors on site? They need to have monitoring happening while the trenches are taking place. The one on the end of Mackay's Road, where that's situated down in the lake, once you get close to waterways, the occupancy rate and the likelihood of finding Aboriginal cultural heritage deep in the ground is more higher likelihood, because people are living there, for thousands and thousands of years. You've got to remember, the softer ground is where the farming is, and that's where the old people actually buried their dead. We purchased out here to get into farming and a lifestyle change and sort of breathe the fresh air, so to speak. As you can see behind me, I've sort of converted over to lucerne and that here, which is stock feed. And not saying that it's going to directly impact what I'm doing, but it's everyone around me now. Once these things take place, say if they did get installed, does that mean our land values drop? And if so, how do we get compensated around that? There's plenty of other space in Sunraysia to go and put these things. We can put them out in the Millewa, like the Car Warp one, for example. There's plenty of room over on Tapio and New South Side that's got the national grid right beside it, and you tap into that. I think that's a bit more smarter move than trying to put it in amongst farming communities.
So I'm Sharon.
And I'm Andrew.
And we've lived here in this particular part of Birdwoodton for 18 years. but I've actually lived here for almost 60, so my parents were dried fruit lockies, and so was my grandfather before that. So we've had an association with Birdwoodton since it was first named Birdwoodton. My grandfather was a soldier settler here, and we hold very dearly the whole Mildura irrigation district thing, the old pumping area, and I guess so from our perspective it's a little bit more personal with what's, what the company are trying to do here. So we're not against solar. I'm sure everyone's probably saying the same thing. We're not against renewables. We just think this is not the right location, and it's going to have a huge impact on the amenity of Birdwoodton. And from a agricultural and horticultural perspective, it's just not okay that someone can come in and build an industrial facility on prime agricultural land. We will be impacted greatly because it will be on two sides of our property, and initially the first panels were only going to be
1.8 metres off
our
that
fence line,
which was only,
9 metres from our house. And now it's probably a little bit more than that, but not much more, maybe another 4 metres.
Well, it's hard to understand. It depends how you interpret the drawings and how they've tried to mislead people yet again on the size and just how big the facility is going to be.
Yeah, so we were most upset when we had a visit from the Power Vault people, and they told us it would only take up 5.9 hectares, and we thought, well, that's only about half the block of land. That doesn't sound so bad. We'll have a huge buffer. But that was actually technically the panel size. That wasn't the spacing between the panels. And then when we saw the site map and saw that it took up every square inch of this 12 hectares, we were pretty angry. And from there we started to look into solar a little bit more, and we realised that it's actually not dust free, noise free, everything free. It can actually potentially be quite concerning to be put near residential areas. I don't think there are any in Australia, any solar facilities next to so many residential houses on prime agricultural land. When I went to see the planning department at council and was told there's no minimum distance that the panels can be from my home, I just thought, well, that's really not okay, considering the planning scheme is a huge document, very comprehensive. It's got lots of regulations and specifications and guidelines for all the things you can and can't do. But in the solar, there's no information, because they weren't ready for someone to do a solar installation on agricultural land in residential areas.
And the locations appear to be purely profit driven.
And we know by seeing site maps that there's lots of solar facilities on the outskirts of Sunraysia. They're all on dry land, and they're not near residences, not near people's houses, and they're not on agricultural land. There's going to be a 1.8 metre high cyclone fence with barbed wire around it. So I guess what we'll end up with is a compound with nearly, for us, 30,000 solar panels. And so I've done lots of researching, and I've discovered that there are some issues with things like decommissioning of sites, because who's going to move almost 80,000 solar panels from Birdwoodton over the 3 sites, and how do you do that? And how do you do that safely when people live there? Who's going to ensure that that they actually do have to plant that 4 metre buffer?
As with most things that we've seen happen around the area, that once something goes through planning, nothing is really ever enforced totally to the end of these projects. They just, and quite simply, if something does go wayward with the whole thing, they'll just walk away. And again, there's no protection.
Our recommendation to council, after seeing all our objections, and a lot of thought's been put into those objections, and hopefully after having read the article yesterday in the Weekly, is that they realise that this is just not okay for a rural residential horticultural area, and make the right decision.
Okay, my name's Sam Dolfara. I live at 221 McEdward Street, Cabarita. I moved out here 15 years ago. I was a grape grower for 30 years, And I really believe that farming land should stay as farming land. Lower Murray Water spent millions of dollars upgrading all the infrastructure, and now you've got these solar panels going in, which all they're going to do is not use water, and that's good land going to waste. The way I look at it, I've got them at my back door and at my front door. We used to have a great view, and hopefully we still have, and these solar panels don't go ahead. No one ever told me that the solar panels were going in. We only found out from Jamie Strong, that Jamie and Donna, that the panels are here. That we didn't get a letter from council, so we weren't notified at all. Now there's plenty vacant land out there with no water on it that can be used for solar panels. I really think the council should tell them to take their project and take it somewhere else. I'm not against solar. I think they should just take it somewhere else, away from suburbia, and put it out of town.
Hi, I'm Janelle Carruthers and I'm a resident of McKay's Road, Birdwoodton. I've also been involved in the wine industry for the last 25 years and currently hold a position of winemaker and grower liaison across Riverland, Victoria and New South Wales. I would like the council to reject these applications. In the wine industry of late, we have noticed that supply is now aligning with demand, and my fear is if these 3 farms go ahead, the land will be out of production for 25 years.
I'm Oliver and I live on McKay's Road, Birdwoodton, and I don't want the solar farm to be here because the land could be used for farming. It's a family place, not for solar panels. It's a place for families to go and ride down and enjoy themselves. And that's why they shouldn't have the solar farms there.
Relocate to solar!